Welcome on Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and Gerry Hamilton. This is State of the Program, our weekly look at the Longhorns from a 30,000-foot view. And we usually take one category and kind of dive deep on it. The category for this week, guys, that I want to talk about are not portal guys, but returnees to the Texas roster that have something to prove in this short window frame of spring ball. So they have to actually prove that they belong in the discussion with maybe some of the guys that are coming in via the transfer portal. And right now, by the way, this episode is sponsored by Adam Lowy, the Lowy Law Firm. We'll tell you more about him in a minute. But let's start in the offensive backfield. Two guys that fit that mode or that role we're talking about. Gerry, I'll start with you. James Simon and Michael Terry, both talented. But you've got two recruits, or two portal guys coming in, as well as a high school guy that's highly touted. Simon and Terry, this is a big spring for both of them.
Yeah, I really liked what I saw from James Simon in his limited action last year. I mean, he ran with physicality. He ran with toughness. He looked like a guy that could succeed in the SEC or in one of the two major conferences to me. I do think it's a huge spring for him, because what you don't want to have happen if you're James Simon or Michael Terry, Rod, is at the end of the spring, people are talking about Derek Coleman moving ahead, Derek Cooper moving ahead of you. That's what happened with Grayson Littleton to older guys at the nickel position. What you don't want to hear is that a freshman has elevated himself in front of you come May. So this is a big spring for James Simon and Michael Terry. I mentioned Simon first because he's a natural running back. He's always been a running back. Michael Terry obviously has never been hit in a college football game before, so there's a real unknown with him despite his talent. So I think it's a huge spring for those guys. And by the way, it's not just about Derek Cooper behind him, but crafting a role alongside Raleek Brown and Smothers. And positioning yourself. Running back injuries happen. Positioning yourself, who's the number 3 guy coming out of spring? You want to be the number 3 guy because you know one of those first 2 guys is going to miss action next year. It's
Rod,
important to be 3.
Yeah, so Rod, to bringing this up, who is the mix? You know, who's the yin to the yang, right? Smothers and Brown, speed guys. Is Michael Terry that guy you're looking to? Is it James Simon, or is it Derek Cooper in some way?
You need a physical element to your run game identity. And sometimes that can just be, they can be personnel. Your O-line is just really physical. That can be, the running back is a physical presence. Like, Jaden Ball, Texas talked about him back in the day, right? It could be those kind of guys. Or it could be the types of plays you call, right? You run a lot of gap power schemes, downhill schemes. For Texas right now, that's going to be, I think, one of the challenges for start to figure out what's the physical. And that's why everybody's looking at Derek Cooper, because he's got that body. Now, he's young, but, you can see that right now he would definitely be in discussion to be one of those guys that can add a physical element to your run game identity. Now, Michael Terry doesn't really do that, but I do think Michael Terry may have a better chance potentially to get on the field and have some playing time than even a James Simon, just because he potentially could do a lot of different things. Like, he is a versatile athlete. He's one of the best athletes coming out of high school and play wide receiver and play running back. So maybe Sark could build a certain package of plays for him. We know he does that with guys he likes. Did that with a Ryan Niblett. Did that with a Keelan Robinson. He likes you. He's like, you know what? I'll build a little package for this guy. You'll see him 2-3 times a game. Maybe you start to see, the Wildcat come back in a certain way. We hadn't seen that in a while, but when he likes a running back and wants to look for a way to weaponize him, you see that come in. So I do think creatively, I feel like Michael Terry may have a better chance to see the field. Because like you said, Gerry, it looks like if James Simon doesn't, beat out Derek Cooper here in the spring, you're looking at being 4th among and on the depth chart of those running backs. And that obviously you're not going to see the field. Knock on wood. We hope you don't, because that means that everybody stayed healthy. But for Michael Terry, even if he ends up being that 4th running back or 5th running back, there are other ways to utilize him. But Sark's got to like you. So you need to go on special teams, improve your words, something like that. Because if Sark likes you, he'll build a little package for you. We saw that with Ryan Niblett. Now, Ryan Niblett proved himself on special teams. And I think Keelan Robinson kind of did a little bit of that too. That's the key for Michael Terry. Prove yourself, earn the trust in other ways, and then see if you can catch Sark's eye a little bit.
And he's got to do it in the spring.
Yes.
But and that's the key here, in my opinion, because we're talking about spring guys that need to have good springs that are returning to take that next step. Look, it's going to be a crowded backfield in the fall because it's going to be basically be every man for himself at that point, right? I mean, and I don't say that literally. It's going to be a situation where they're trying to figure out who gets the carries in those 4 weeks leading up to practice in fall camp. In springtime, you get chances to test things out, to look at different things, to think about different things. That's why Simon and Terry, in my opinion, have to show something almost immediately in spring camp. Because then Sark can use a couple of weeks here and there to start massaging what he's thinking and get something out of it. All right. Before we go to the next position, it's going to be a little bit of a surprising one to you guys. I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Every State of the Program episode brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, from 18-wheeler to ATV, reach out to Adam and his group, LowyLawFirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see if you are due compensation. Again, that is LowyLawFirm.com. Or reach out to Adam, 20 plus years experience, UT Law School grad as well. All right, Nick Townsend, tight end. He was a lightning rod of sorts because you saw some of what he could do, right? I mean, he obliterated guys in the run game at times. Missed some blocks at times. Had the big touchdown run against A&M. Texas trusted him late. Okay, in my opinion. They got to that part of the season. They trusted him. Okay. But how much do you trust him with bringing in a guy like Michael Masunis, who started at Michigan State, who's an inline blocker, should he be more to this offense in 2026? And does that start in spring ball, Rod?
I think it does start in spring ball. And I'm with you. I think we saw the hints of it late in the season. Sark coming up with specific concepts to try to weaponize Nick Townsend's athleticism. I think he loves his physicality. That's something that early on in the season, guys like even Arch was saying, oh, here's his physicality. It for a freshman, it stands out. Like it's just, and we saw it even, it jumps out on film. That a guy, he wants to be physical. He craves the physicality. And I think that's why Sark loves the tight end position so much, is that it does kind of, it helps you mesh the physicality of your offense and philosophy with the spread finesse elements of it too. And Sark, although his tight ends have been weaponized in the passing game, he hasn't had a tight end that's really can be a mauler and be physical, as well as be a guy that can go out there and be a weapon in the passing game. Nick Townsend has that ability. Now, he's had competent, capable blockers. So you got guys in the league right now getting starts like Gunnar Helm and JT Sanders. But they weren't necessarily maulers in the run game. He's still looking for that at tight end. And talking about, he's got that with those inline guys, but they're not necessarily threats in the passing game. So it makes your offense predictable. A guy like Nick Townsend can give you more balance because they can give you the physicality in the run game as a blocker, but also the athleticism in the passing game. That's what he's seeking. That's why he's got a good shot.
Jerry, your expectations for Nick Townsend this spring, pretty high based on what you said for him about him historically.
Much more involved in the passing game. Will the tight end screen come back a little more? Some things they did with Jatavion Sanders will we see with Nick Townsend next year? Because the down the field plays, right? I mean, Cam Coleman can help a tight end because he's going to draw safety coverage over the top. So are we going to see a little bit more of usage in the passing game with Nick Townsend that Texas Sark used with Jatavion Sanders? I think that's possible. I'm not predicting it yet, but I do think that's possible because I think there's some similarities there.
Well, they had Worthy and A.D. Mitchell on the outside, so it was two-pronged. They should have that again this year as well. All right, offensive lineman, Jerry. We thought about Andre Kojo, even a Jaden Chapman, Jackson Christian, some guys. But the one that we decided to go with, Jordan Coleman, a returnee, a true freshman last year, will be a redshirt freshman this year. Why do we go with him as the guy that is could be a piece of this puzzle here?
Look, I mean, he wasn't the most highly ranked guy out of high school, but we got to remember he chose between Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Okay, he was a highly recruited SEC player. He was a 600-plus pound squatter coming out of high school. He was a guy that you didn't know if he was going to play guard or tackle because he was 6'5", 355. You just didn't really know where he was going to go. He played tackle at Cedar Hill, but that's a lot different than playing tackle in the SEC. He worked at guard and tackle. He ended up being a backup left tackle at times. So that showed you how much they thought of him, that if there was an injury, he might have to come in and play and actually play real reps for Texas. That didn't happen, but I think he's a guy that is a big body, that's an athletic guy that's picked up a system quickly. So I think Jordan Coleman, and I think they like all those young kids. I mean, Jordan Coleman, Devin Coleman, Jackson Christian, but Jordan Coleman has that high upside, but he is a guy who's naturally strong and then also added the weight room strength coming into Texas. And I think that has proven out to be something that's going to be very big part of his game at the college level. So I'm going with Jordan Coleman because also Trevor Goosby's out for the spring due to injury.
Mm-hmm.
They got to get somebody prepared there. And I'm not saying Goosby's missed time, but you have to have somebody prepared if Jordan Coleman stays at left tackle to be ready to be the left tackle. Because look what happened with Kelvin Banks goes down, Cam Williams goes down, and Goosby had to come in and play in games that mattered. We feel like that may be Jordan Coleman in 26.
I want to add this because I think a lot of people I want to talk about two offensive tackles that are upperclassmen, Jaden Chapman and Andre Kojo. Now, everybody knew that Andre Kojo had the ACL tear in fall camp last year. So we'll see. We think we'll see him come back this year. A lot of people don't realize that Jaden Chapman was coming off an injury himself.
Yeah.
He was not 100% all of last year. People don't, because we didn't talk about it, frankly. I think that'll be an interesting play there. Rod, I want to go to you next because it's a safety. And one of the returnees is going to be hitting a baseball a little bit this spring. But he is a lightning rod of conversation for Texas fans in some ways, simply because of his overall athleticism. But is it time for Jonah Williams to not necessarily make a decision about what sport, but make a decision that he's going to commit to football to a level that he needs to if he's going to be a great football player eventually?
Exactly. That's the question, right? Is he going to commit to one or the other? And listen, I am not judging the young man because baseball is a great sport to commit to. It's a lifetime health care, guaranteed money. It's a great sport. And he's got high-level talent in that sport. I mean, I never see him without Schloss around him. So every time he's a football, Schloss is on the sideline, like right next to him. And after the game, congratulate him, like, hey, man, what's going on? So, hey, they have a real good connection. I'll just say this. I do think, he's not – like Deion Sanders is one of those guys rare athletes that can play both sports and do it at a really high level. And Kyler Murray is another one of those guys. Is he that kind of athlete? Nobody knows. But I think most of us feel confident that if he picks, his athletic profile and upside is so high that if he picks one of those sports to commit to, star. Yeah. Right? To be a star in both of them, he may have that because he's a freak. Jerry can tell you where he would have him ranked among best athletes on the team. I think he'd be right up there at the top 3 to 5 guys on the team. And I said when I first saw him in high school, that guy can win the Thorpe. And he can. But I do believe for him to win the Thorpe, he's going to have to focus on football. But I do think he's that good.
You can't just have 10 practices, man.
No. They say you ain't that good. But I think ultimately you can use him in so many ways, though. I mean, his frame, he's big, so you probably bring him down to the second level. He's great, got good ball skills, tracks the ball really well, got great instincts. He can be one of those middle field, those middle defenders when you run that 3 high inverted look as well. I just the sky, really the possibilities and the sky's the limit if he chooses football.
So another thing that needs to be mentioned there, Jerry and Rod, Blake Gideon returns.
Yeah.
As a safety. So while Blake Gideon helped recruit Jonah Williams, He didn't coach him last year.
Yeah.
And so that needs to be – so whatever Jonah Williams learned from Dwayne Akina, Blake Gideon may have a couple things he wants to change, and that has to be resolved in spring ball for him to be able to even –
I want to add one more thing because I think it's very important in the Jonah Williams conversation. It's got to happen on the football field this season in 26, or it's not going to happen, in my opinion, because he is MLB draft eligible in 27 since he enrolled at Texas early. So he will be MLB draft eligible after 3 seasons of baseball at Texas, and he will go high in the draft. So it's next year or never for him, in my opinion.
All right, Doug. One other player that we picked out, and then I'm going to go to a position. The other player we picked out, like encircled and said, returnee needs to prove it and keep proving it, but we feel good about is KJ Lacey, the quarterback. Gerry, why did we pick him in this list of group of guys that we think need to take that step?
Look, I think he's the clear number 2. They got to get him ready to potentially be the number 1 when Diabell will redshirt and then compete with him. I think it's a big difference last year when they wanted him the redshirt, so they needed to bring in somebody, even though he'd beaten out Trey Owens, they wanted to bring in somebody with experience. Well, I think they feel really good about KJ Lacey and what he can become. And we mentioned him because, look, Arch Manning takes contact as a player. Quarterback injuries happen. Okay, look at Missouri this year. I mean, so KJ Lacey, he needs to continue to stay on the path that I think Texas thinks he's on, because at some point next season, even though we don't want to talk about it, there's going to be a time he has to come into a game. I mean, yes, knock on wood, but it's just a sport, guys. It's just a sport. He's going to have to be called upon at some point next year, and his spring is huge for him to continue his trajectory, because the returns, when I talked to somebody in Orlando about it, they are extremely high on KJ Lacey in the program.
I want to stay with you here, Gerry. Interior defensive line: Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma,
Justice Terry.
Justice Terry. That's like a group of guys that did not see a ton of action, but have a ton of promise. Is this a prove it year for them? Because if they don't come on, then that means Texas has got to go to the portal in 27. Much, right? I mean, is that what do you think of those interior guys that I just mentioned?
If I could say one thing to Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles, and Justice Terry, I'd say this: you're in a great spot because you've had a year of coaching from Kenny Baker. He's a tremendous technician and coach, run game and pass rush. And now Will Muschamp comes in. You have a clean slate. You have a chance to really go impress the new defensive coordinator at Texas. And if you do that, he will find a way to get you where you want to be, which is on the field. Because Texas did not go heavy portal. They got their nose tackle in Gaffard, but they passed on some other guys because they do like their young defensive linemen. So that's the one thing I'd say to those guys. I'd be like, look, man, y'all had a great year of developmental coaching last year. Justice Terry needs to continue to add weight. But you're coming in with a different set of eyes, and a set of eyes that's coached many NFL defensive linemen. And if you become one of his guys, that he wants to add you to the mix with Murad Watson and Alex January and his big nose guard, then that means your future is really on the uptick.
Yep.
So what do you think of that?
Well, I just think ultimately, what also helps this group is that you want to rotate a lot of guys at D tackle. Like ideally, Texas would love a 5-man rotation of D tackles. Now, I think usually they settle in on 4. So there's kind of a 4-man rotation. That's what it has been. But as Gerry said, now you got a different DC, different mentality, different philosophy. Who knows? He may deem you, hey, I got 2 guys on the same level here. We got a 5-man rotation. And you know what? Even better. So that's what I love about D tackle, that if you do impress, coach will love to, if you do earn their trust, they'd love to throw you in the rotation. Ain't no such thing as like, we only really got 3 corners that we play. It's like, no. They want to play like 5 or 6 D tackles. They love it if they can get it. So I think ultimately that's going to help that group too, that young group of guys. But Justice Terry's the one, obviously, that's most intriguing. And I think he'll benefit most from Muschamp's.
I agree.
Oh, why do you think that? Why do you think
he can play multiple shades? He also can be one of those D tackles that can be an every down D tackle that can be a guy that can stop the run on early downs for you, and also be a pass rusher on later downs. Those are the guys that Texas has recently at D tackle has been putting into the league. The Byron Murphys of the world and your Tavondre Sweats of the world. Not saying he's going to be like body type like those guys, but in terms of skill set, he can be a guy that don't need to leave the field. Like not
Alfred
a lot of
Collins.
Yeah, you're back. Alfred Collins, another one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Vernon Bryden goes on and on.
Hey, there's a number of other guys we could have picked. We wanted to focus on those guys because we think those are the primary ones. But Warren Roberson coming back, Kobe Black. There's going to be a situation. Wardell Mack at nickel. There's going to be a lot of guys that are in this category, but I think those are the ones that we're primarily looking for as we look toward spring ball. All right. That's going to do it for this episode of State of the Program. Thanks again to our sponsor, Adam Lowy, over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, and think you might be due compensation, reach out to Adam and his firm for a free, no strings attached consultation to see if you might be due compensation. Again, that's Adam Lowy, LowyLawFirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for your sponsorship of On Texas Football. For Rod Babers, for Gerry Hamilton, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchinson, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been the episode of State of the Program. Hook 'em horns, guys.
Hook 'em.